My name is Jim Sheils, and I am a partner at Southern Impression Homes. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a mission I've had about leveraging build to rent to help you guys buy back your time and create a legendary family life. And so, in simple terms, for me, a legendary family life means doing all the things I dreamed of as a kid. And on top of that, getting to do the things my father always dreamed of doing, but he never got to do in his lifetime. So it has always been about the adventure for me. And 25 years ago, I was here in actually Arizona, just up the road. And the first real estate event that I went to, I had a very simple plan. And I said, if I can get my real estate in place, that'll allow me to get to the important stuff, the good things. And by choosing real estate investing as my vehicle, I've been able to do that. I've been able to buy back my time. I've been able to do things on my terms. And I've been able to fund some incredible adventures. My family and I take multiple 6-week adventures, cold winters in Nova Scotia, warm winters of Costa Rica, one of our favorite places in the world. We started this year off there. I also wanted to be able to spend a lot of time with my family and my friends. Unfortunately, my parents, as much as they loved us, they didn't have that financial resource to be able to do it. But I made a very intentional purpose to spend a lot of time with my family, not only in the fun things, but also education and learning. And out of that came something that I never saw happening, which actually led me to here. My wife and I actually wrote a best-selling book about family life. How do busy professionals and business people keep their family life strong as they're building their career? It actually went to #1 in 3 different categories. And again, it was just with this purpose of saying, if I could get my real estate in place, I can have that legendary family life that I always dreamed of as a kid. I always wanted to be involved in active service and contribution. And by getting my real estate in place, that funded the adventures of me helping with an orphanage in Guatemala that we support, building houses in Mexico and Costa Rica, and actually helping to fund a housing group that houses kids in our area who are in foster care in Northeast Florida. My wife and I got a little crazy last year, and we said 4 kids weren't enough. So we decided to adopt a little girl at birth. When she was born, she ended up having craniosynostosis. I've practiced that word so long, and thanks to people like you, she had to have emergency skull surgery at 9 weeks. And thanks again to people like you, she came through it. A few months later, we got to stand in front of the judge with 40 family friends. There she is in her little helmet to get sworn in for our new responsibility. I always disagreed with the notion that as adults, we have to give up our hobbies. That never made any sense to me. By getting my real estate in place, I've never given up my hobbies. I love surfing. I'm going to do it as long as I can. I also always had an affinity for my family history, my Irish roots. So last summer, I actually went back to Ireland by myself for 10 days. I got to see the house my great-grandfather and grandfather grew up in. My second cousin still owns it, 142-year buy and hold in our family, which I thought was a pretty cool real estate testament. I got to stand in front of the grave of my great-grandmother, which was a pretty nostalgic moment. And then I sat with my oldest living relative who had over 200 years worth of letters, documents, photos of my family history. I got to learn a lot about myself. And one of my entrepreneurial roots actually came from my great-grandfather's little Irish county store in a little village called Cross Keys, Ireland. I never would have been able to explore these roots without my real estate investments in place. Probably the best thing that ever came out of my money, again, and thanks to people like you, I want you to keep doing what you're doing because I know how important it is. My dad got sick 12 years ago. I was the only one in the financial resource space and able to recover and do a kidney donation for him. It was one of the best things that I've ever done. And my dad, as I talked about in this, he really did have a big influence on my journey into real estate investing and passive income. My dad, when we were kids, he left this Hallmark card on their little wooden dresser for him and my mom. And you've all seen the card before. It's that good-looking couple in the all-white outfit walking down the beach. And inside it, my dad wrote, these are the places we're going to go someday. You and I to my mom, and with the kids, we're going to go to some of these places someday. Unfortunately, my dad struggled with money his entire life, and he never got to do these things that he dreamed of. That is until I got my real estate in place, and I was able to retire my parents almost 17 years ago. And that allowed them to finally get to the good stuff, the important things. Now, my dad unfortunately passed away a year ago on Christmas Day, which was hard. But I have to tell you, I think he went out on top because he was able to get to those important things through my real estate. And by doing that, I bought back a little piece of his dream while accomplishing my own. And I tell you all this because I can make the same promise. We've worked with plenty of clients, which I'll share with you, over the last 20 years and almost $1 billion in property. How do we do the same thing for you guys? How do we build a passive income, an active lifestyle for you and your family? Because that's normally why we're all here. It's not about the real estate, it's about what the real estate can provide. Then how was I able to get to over $40,000 a month in passive income? Well, one of the things I want to show you, both in my personal life and in my company, is transparency. I think that's important. I've shared the stage with Eric Thomas. He's a really dynamic speaker, and he's got a saying, don't take constructive criticism from people who have never constructed anything. So my wife and I are part of this passive income playbook. And for this project, the media group we're working with said, we want to get a note from your accountant, and my CFO accountant is here today. What are your actual real estate investments that are passive paying you monthly? So for what you guys can see, as of December 2022, the average coming in for me, not of active income, of things I build houses or consulting, but my passive real estate brings in $42,692.35 on average. That's just for myself and not my company. Now, with Southern Impression Homes, this company was built to be able to do the same thing for you through build to rent, which has been the most lucrative niche of direct ownership of property that I've ever come across, and that's why we built the company around it. And right now, we do a very simple plan. We build residential property, single family, duplexes and quads. And what is build to rent? Well, I worked for years in old houses in foreclosures, and so did my building partner. And we saw problems with them, headaches, turnover, maintenance and repairs. By going into build to rent, we were able to build a better product in better areas with better longevity, easier to manage, and better overall growth patterns. We could take the risk for you guys during the building phase, where all you have to do is put up a 10% deposit. We build it, none of those fancy construction loans. You guys step in at the end with one permanent loan, which is easy to get financing on in new construction in Florida. And we manage the property long-term for you. So you are the direct property owner. Again, I said it last night. I've invested in three things: funds, syndications, and direct property ownership. Why Jim brought us in and my friend Don from DLP introduced us here is they saw the importance of having this option of owning property directly. And I can tell each of you, although I've made money in all three of those, direct property ownership has made me the most money. So we want to make that opportunity to you guys as well without the headaches. Now, right now, our company, Southern Impression Homes, has $637 million under asset management, $44 million in annual recurring revenue. We've created almost $160 million in equity for you, our investors, and some of you are in this room already. We have over 1,000 active current investors, 7,500 units developed, over 8,200 residents housed, got a team of over 170 making it happen. Last year's sales were over 180 million. And through the work that we've done, we've calculated that we've impacted in a positive way over 375,000 families. Obviously, our goal is to get that to 1 million. Recently, a few months ago, we were actually acquired by a group called Guillen Homes, which is kind of fascinating because they're owned by a company called Sumitomo. 332-year-old Japanese company. Honestly, guys, until they approached us, I didn't know companies were this old. But they look at things in a different way than we normally do. And what they liked was our long-term fundamentals. They liked build to rent. They liked Florida, and they liked Texas, where the markets that were mainly in Florida, but they want us to grow into Texas as well. This was a big opportunity for us to continue to run the company. And what does that do for you guys? Well, we're able to get you better deals and better pricing and better quality. Better service, better future. We still want that small client focus, and if some of you have stepped at our booth, hopefully you've already felt that's how we work as a team, and we want to keep that in place for you. But there is a reason, guys, that the largest hedge funds, the biggest institutions are going into the build to rent space and want to own the properties directly. Yes, we do work with some of them, but I prefer, and I think you'll see that, to work with the individual investor like yourself. That's where we see the most magic, the most growth, the most appreciation. And that's why we choose to work with you in this build to rent strategy. Now, my wife and I put together this passive income playbook, and it's actually going to be put into a book that'll come out this fall. All you guys will get a copy. But there's only 5 steps to our passive income, and we went through our own travels of how we accomplished our passive income through real estate and those many, many investors and their success stories. And this is what we found. The deals must pass the passive income principles and success indicators, which I'm going to go over quickly with you. Most of our people start with investing in 3 to 5 properties in a shorter period of time, maybe 2 to 3 years. And then after that, every few years, they roll equity into new deals. It could be more properties, a fund, a syndication. And they do that by refinancing off of these initial seeds that they've planted and let the tenant pay for that. That's how the wealth started to grow for us, by moving it forward, planting some seeds and then moving it forward. Then our 5th step, which is just something of our core values, I don't like to see families fall apart as you're on this journey. You want the camaraderie, you want the respect, you want everyone on board. And our family blueprint has been able to show so many people, including people at White Coat, DLP, who brings us in to teach this, how this family blueprint can help keep you guys on a path where everyone is strong and you make the most of the time you have together. Because guys, if I've learned anything over the last few years, it doesn't last forever. Now, there's 10 principles that we've discovered that we've built our entire build to rent program on to make the best results for you guys. First off, we invest for the long term. If you're looking for 6 months in and out, we are not for you. We build solid portfolios that plant seeds and continue to grow and grow. That's how I got the results for me and my family and our most successful investors. There are 5 different ways that you make money in real estate. Cash flow is important, but there's 4 other things that you have to look at. If I had only looked at, let's say, cash flow or potential equity growth, my investing career would have taken very different paths, and I can look back and reflect, the accomplishments I've had financially would be very different and not as good. So the way we do it with our build to rent is we get into all 5 ways that you make money in the real estate to get you the best results. We invest in good areas and good neighborhoods. This is a really simple one that a lot of people argue. I've gone to areas that are tougher, didn't work for me. We go to good areas. I'll only invest for my clients where I invest myself. Avoid fixer-uppers. Now, I know you guys will think this is shocking, but sometimes TV lies to us. It's not as fun as the shows say, and I've done over 1,000 rehabs. And what I want is simplicity. You guys are very busy, and please, you can see, I want you to keep doing kidney donations. I want you to keep fixing skulls of my adopted daughters and so many other things. We need you. Fixer-uppers will complicate your life, and they'll also hurt you in those first few years where you're really planting the seed. That's why we went to new construction. We found the numbers to work way better and the headaches and the time involved to be way less. Let the experts manage your properties. There's nothing better, I'm sure, for you guys when that patient comes into your office and they already have their diagnosis and treatment that they're going to let you know that they're going to do. That's not what you want. You guys have become experts for a reason, and so have we. And what we found is if you'll let experts manage your properties, I do not manage my own properties. I have no desire that you won't create these extra headaches or second jobs. You get to do what you're experts at, and property managers can do the same for you. On top of that, I learned some valuable lessons in my first 5 years of investing. My rental property is not for charity. Because if I give charity to my rental properties, I'll never be able to give anywhere else. You know, helping that orphanage in Guatemala, the other housing projects that I involved that are all charity work, I wouldn't have the money if I gave charity to my rentals. I know that sounds really harsh, guys, but at the end of the day, your mortgage company is not going to excuse you from your mortgage. And that was a big lesson that I had to learn for me and my family. So I don't confuse charity with my rental properties. And by using a property manager, that gets a lot easier. But that was a big mistake we encourage people not to make. Invest in landlord-friendly states. Now, I am not getting political here, but I'm going to be very direct with you guys. I don't want to invest in states where they make it hard for landlords to collect their rent. That's a pretty basic premise for our passive income playbook. If I can't collect my rent, how am I going to have passive income? I want to go to states that are landlord-friendly, where they make it easier to collect rents. I used to live in California. I live in Florida now. We're based in 14 markets in Florida. It's for a reason. We want a place where it's easy to collect our rents. Plug into a support team. You don't want to create another low-paying job for yourself. You're going into this to buy back your time. You don't want to create a second or third job. And when you plug into a support team, just like when I donated the kidney to my father, believe me, I didn't try to recreate what they had done at the Mayo Clinic. That would have been pretty silly of me. So we always want you to be a part. But when our best and most successful and happiest clients just leverage into the support team and what we do, they're the happiest. And if they don't, they try to create another second or third job, they don't see the time, the freedom, or even the comfort that they were looking for. Don't create another low-paying job, whether you come to us or someone else. Lean into their system. Only buy from build-to-rent companies that have a successful and profitable track record. Now, for me, the marker is about 500 properties. We've built over 2,000 at this point, but 500 is when you start to figure things out. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't invest with someone who's built less than 500, but I do want to be very clear, there's a different risk factor then. So I encourage you guys, only buy from a build-to-rent company who has a successful track record. And never stop learning. From when I took that first class 24 years ago in Glendale, just about 20 minutes up the road, I still haven't stopped learning. That's why you guys are here. This is a continual process. And I know when I first started learning real estate, it felt like I was drinking out of an open fire hydrant. That fire hydrant does slow down and you do start to digest more. And if you keep learning and fine-tuning and course-correcting just a little bit, I think you're going to see incredible results. And one of the things I hammer home, which might be a little off, but it's so important to me, is get your family involved. Get your children involved in the money game. My children and teens are very involved in our real estate investing. They understand it. They buy into it. They support it. They have better respect for our family financing. I think this is so important for you guys to do that. And our family blueprint makes that happen. Now, there's 5 predictable passive income success indicators that we follow. These are really important to understand. We only build in markets that are experiencing economic growth, population growth, affordability, meaning the average salary of a family could afford the average medium home, desirability, something that wants them to draw and live there, and healthy supply and demand. Florida has them all. We're there for a reason. Now, let me give you a couple of really cool stats. Between 2012 and 2021, over 12 million new homes were formed, but only 7 million homes were actually built. So all these households were formed and only 7 million were built. Most of that in the Southeast and a big number in Florida. Affordability. So many of you have spoken to us and I've heard the question saying, is the market tapped out? Isn't the market tapped out? I always return with this simple question. Which market? No one follows the national weather average. Could you guys imagine if we're combining the weather of New York, Miami, LA, Chicago? That's not going to tell you how to dress. Real estate is very localized, and I've learned this. So we had a lot of investors that were trying to invest in Salt Lake. Look at the difference in median home values and household income. The rents are about the same. That's why I see things like this, that Florida has lots of room to grow, and the economy is still growing, which means jobs are growing, and their salaries. Boise, Idaho, a lot of my California investors were trying to go there and make the numbers work. Beautiful area, but look at these difference in numbers. The buy-in compared to the household income. When you guys are poised with that question, is the market tapped out? You need to ask yourself, which market? Desirability. Any reports that you guys look on, the markets that we're building in are some of the fastest growing in the country right now. We want that wind at our back. People want to live in Florida. They want to be warm. They want to be by the water. They like what we have there. And this is a great one. So the number of new homes under 1,400 square feet has steadily declined since the '08 meltdown, resulting in less than 10% of the new builds. Now, as I told you guys, we build small starter homes, duplexes, and quads. The national home builders have no interest in these because they like big margins. We work on a lower margin. So we're providing one of the most desirable workhouse needs right now for housing for this smaller demographic in an area like Florida and the markets there. Now, this is a big one. Every one of you is probably saying, okay, if you live in California, I'm used to earthquakes, but what about these hurricanes? This is a really cool video. This is Punta Gorda, Florida, the day after Hurricane Ian hit. Hurricane Ian was a Category 4. The eye, which means the really tough part of the hurricane, went over two spots, Fort Myers and Punta Gorda. Now, if you look at this, and Fort Myers, as we know, was decimated. If you look at this one, you're going, gosh, it doesn't look that bad. Yeah, there's some tree limbs down and some water, but the houses look intact. Why is that? The reason why that is, in 2004, Hurricane Charlie came through Punta Gorda and decimated it. We had relatives there. It was awful. So the government stepped in and said, new rules. You have to build to different standards. Now, as a builder, I got to tell you, I grumbled, kind of like when our parents used to say, wear your seatbelt, wear your seatbelt. Yeah. And then you get in that first car accident. Well, that's what we just went through with Hurricane Ian. And the reason these homes have done so well, they had to be built on higher ground when they were rebuilt in 2004. The structural design and materials we have to use, way higher standards. And even though we're in coastal cities, guys, most of our properties are built at least 5 miles inland, which have a much lower issue historically. This is pretty cool. Out of 278 projects that we had going on with a hurricane Category 4, only 4 properties had to have insurance claims. And these 4 properties, guys, so you know, the reason that they had just started construction. They were just freestanding walls. We hadn't been able to tie on the roof, which really gives it to security. So the walls were knocked over in the wind. Just over $5,000 worth of damage so we could file the insurance claim. But we had 0 flooding. And if you know anything about hurricanes, flooding is the worst part. It's not the wind. This was a huge accomplishment for us that we really didn't want to go through. We're glad we did now. And the way we got rewarded, not only from a bigger company wanting to come in and join forces with us, which they did, the insurance companies. When insurance companies see things like this, I hear this rumor all the time, you can't get insurance in Florida. Same thing, I say, which house are you talking about? We are able to get great insurance rates, which goes right to your bottom line. Now, our typical investor, they have successful careers, they have successful professions like you guys. They don't have time to find the deal, finance it, or manage it. We help provide all 3 with our system. Now, we work with some bigger groups. The way I got introduced to you guys was my friend Don from DLP. Don has actually become a friend. They have $4 billion under management. I'm actually a family advisor for Don's family and his leadership team. And they decided they liked our system so much, they've invested over $40 million into our properties, which is a pretty big testament of what we do. So we do work with some bigger groups like Don's and DLP, but I like the individual investor as well. Let's look at a few of them. Tom became a good friend of mine. You can look because of the last thing. When I met Tom, he was trying to step back from his business. His wife was going through the process of preparing for a kidney donation. I said, I can help you with that one a little bit as well. So we became friends. He has at a mortgage company. He started with one simple deal. Invested $88,000 into this duplex in Southwest Florida. The pricing went up, the rents went up, and along with this, he invested in a few other properties. And you guys will get all these slides, and our sales specialists will be able to go over these with you. But he planted the seeds, under $100,000 for each of these properties. 4 years later, Tom is sitting at over $1 million in equity. His estimated monthly cash flow is over $11,000. He said, Jim, I'm going to go into this with you. I want boring. I want to be with my wife. I don't want a second job. What I love about this too, as I told you guys before, I don't want to see you give up your hobbies. I want to see you do them. Tom says the last property he bought with us pays for his airplane. He's ex-Air Force. He loves doing his stunt flying. And this was pretty cool. The day of that adoption that I showed you with the judge swearing us in for our new daughter, Tom was Facebook messaging me, saying, how did it go? Where are you at? And then he let me know this. I retired from Fairway Mortgage yesterday. You played a big part in allowing this to happen. Thank you. I love getting notes like this. Now, Tom might be a little different than you guys. I got to be telling you this for selfish reasons. I don't want to see you guys retire. I see how much you guys have done for us with the things in my life where I've needed health and medical support. But I do want to see you guys have something to fall back on, something to supplement. Just like Dr. Amina Goodwin, friend of mine's infectious medicine. She doesn't want to retire. She's good at what she does, but she wanted to supplement her income. She's got a young family. She wanted to have more time with them and to finance the adventures that she wanted to take. Amina started with a few properties as well. She came down, visited our market. We love visitors. And she invested into 3 properties and then went into 2 more properties after that. Today, a few short years later, Amina's sitting at almost $6,000 a month monthly cash flow and nearly $800,000 in equity. David and Gina Nelson, also in healthcare. They said, pull the trigger now. We finally did. They had sat on the sidelines, talked to me for about a year and a half. They went forward, bought a few properties. And if you didn't see that before, they have a very large family. They said, we just want to have more time with our family. I said, I can understand that wholeheartedly. They started years ago in 2019. Again, we're talking some incremental investment amounts, $50,000, $40,000, $80,000 to get things going. Today, they're sitting at almost $5,000 a month net cash flow and almost $900,000 in equity. Now, Adam was a really interesting story. He became a friend. His wife asked a lot of questions. A lot of questions. Now, I can say that in joke because she'll probably watch this because our wives are now good friends. But they were always investors on their own in Salt Lake City. You saw the numbers I just showed you in Salt Lake. They wanted to go to a place they saw more growth. They came to Florida. Adam saw the sense because he had some experience in real estate investing. Adam was a little more aggressive. He didn't start with 1 or 2. He actually started with 5 properties. He did well on these 5 properties. He used exactly our strategy. He went back to those properties, pulled money off of them, and went into a few fund syndications and other deals. Some of them that I actually provided, some I didn't, but I gave him counsel on. And he's had one of the most best growths that I've seen for one of our clients. Today, he's sitting at over $21,000 in passive income. And on top of that, he's almost at $3 million in equity. He lives a really good lifestyle between the beaches of St. Augustine and the mountains of Utah right now. And he's getting to enjoy time with his young family, which is what it was all about for him. Now, David Phelps runs a small mastermind of dentist investors. These dentist investors came to me. They bought a group of houses. Their cash flow about $12,000, and they've done really well on the equity with where they chose over $2.5 million in equity. I show you guys all those stories just to show what's possible. You can say to me, well, fine, you and your wife did it, you have the company. But we have so many stories like that that you can relate to, of people that just wanted to buy back some of their time, have some supplemental income. They didn't want a second job. They didn't want the headaches. They wanted to ignore the horror stories that you've heard of direct property ownership that we've been able to avoid by going build to rent. There is a huge difference between new property and old property. Guys, I wish I had learned that about 15 years earlier. I would have saved a lot of times. The televisions weren't telling me the truth about the fun of these rehabs. The new construction is boring and it's effective, and that's what we want. If you guys want to take down the QR code of this is just our simple blueprint, step by step, that my wife and I and our building partner put together of how do we get to where we go? How do you get to make sure real estate is there for you? You're not there for the real estate. Very simple, with some case studies. It'll give you a really good starting point. The book is not out yet. That comes out this fall. But the blueprint is already created. And again, we've been able to work with over 1,000 active investors for this exact program. Live deals. Let's look at some of these. So you guys know, 4 of our sales specialists are here to assist you guys this week. They want to hear, what are your goals? They want to hear, what are your starting points? What are your concerns? What are you wanting to get out of this? Because what I can tell you, some of them have 13, 14 years experience in building successful portfolios for individual investors like yourself. They all start with 1 property and then growing to the next, to the next, to the next. This is a very simple formula. Buy and hold real estate is absolutely the most proven way to make money, more so than funds or syndications. Again, I invest in those as well, but this is what we stick to. So again, we do a few things: single family, duplexes, and quads. These are the main veins of residential real estate. So for a single family today, Ocala, one of our hotter markets, you're looking at an initial cash investment of $81,000. Now, I don't have time today, guys, in our short time to go over the numbers too strongly. But if you come to the booth and sit with us, we will go through line by line so you understand exactly the fundamentals of how you make money. But if you look at the orange, you start with about 80,000, and we know we can get you to over 8% cash flow with also estimated profits of an additional 62,000 and a year-over-year internal rate of return of over 16%. And that's with assumptions way lower than what I just showed you from the case studies for what we've accomplished for other investors. Duplexes, another thing, you're going to have a little higher cash investment, 128,000. But look where you're at, almost a 10% cash on cash return with other estimated profits and holds of 104,000, not including the depreciation or other tax incentives as well. And at a 5-year hold, you're looking at almost 18% internal rate of return. This is why buy and hold real estate works, and it incrementally grows. That's how my wealth jumped personally. Quadruplexes, kind of the unicorns of residential real estate. That means you have 4 tenants under one roof. Okay, that's what a quadruplex is. These are a little harder to get approved, but when you get them, they can be steady soldiers to make the best returns for you with just one loan required. Initial cash invested, you're looking at a little over 220,000. But with that, you're still performing at almost an 8% cash on cash return, an estimated profit hold of another 156,000, and an almost 15% internal rate of return. Again, it's really important for you guys to understand the numbers. The one thing that I believe is the best about our simple strategy of building new construction rental property for you to hold long-term in high-growth markets, the numbers are simple. We can sit down and you will know exactly how this works. You will be in full control because you own the property. We just manage it for you and have a great track record from doing this. But you guys hold the keys to what you decide to do. You guys hold the keys to how long you want to hold them. If you want to sell in 5 years, you can. You want to sell in 15 years, you can. We're just there for the long term. But we will go through the numbers with you step by step. We also have incentives right now. There's an incentive program that we have until the end of March called the 2 and 2. How many in here have already bought property before? Okay, a great number of you. How many of you would like to have had 2% of your closing costs paid on your last property that have bought property? Would that have been nice? Yeah, on these average ones, that's probably over $8,000. That means we're going to give you 2%, which is 2% of the sales price, in case some of you are new, towards your closing costs. You can use that towards closing costs, or you can use that to buy down your interest rate. We all know that interest rates have had some jumps up. You can use all that money to buy down your rate so it gets you a better interest rate. That's on us. And also right now, we're offering 2 years of free property management. That's almost $4,000 coming out that you guys now get to keep. And when you start to do the cash on cash returns, that's significant. Because what I've learned with buy and hold real estate, guys, you have to learn to plant the seed first. Now, we all know when we plant the seed, we don't eat off it very much. But a lot can happen in a few short years with that seed. We know by giving you 2 years of free management, we're going to be able to get you even better cash flow to start, which is going to accelerate you so you can be like some of the people that we just showed you. So we want you to join our passive income family, obviously, guys. This is something really important to me. I can stand up here and show you what I've accomplished, what we've accomplished as a company, but I want to see you buy back your time. I want you to have something to fall back on. I want you to have that legendary family life, no matter what that might look for you. Again, for me, it was just, how do I do the things I dreamed of as a kid? And unfortunately, my dad didn't get to do in his lifetime. That's what a legendary family life is for me. I'm sure each one of you has your own reason. The starting point is come talk to us. There is no pressure. There is no obligation, but learn more about build to rent. This was a very short time, but we'd love to explain more. We'd love to go into the numbers more, explain more about our markets and why we're there, how our management works, the advantage of not having to have a construction loan and just one permanent loan. We've been really well vetted. Again, when Brett came out and looked at our operation for 2 days, he said, when can you join Whitecoat? And that was an honor. And we're very excited to be here. We'd love to grow with you. I want to save a few minutes for questions. And I'm sorry if I seemed rushed, but I got to get you guys back in there on time. But I really do appreciate you taking the time of your lunch to be here, hear about our program. And I want to make sure if there's any questions, we're here to answer them. We have some mic runners. Anyone have a question? I see one way in the back and one up front.
Thank you so much, first of all, for a lovely lunch and for sponsoring this and for the sentiments you expressed. So I wanted to ask how you're dealing with the rising interest rate environment right now. I know the 2%, the 2.2 thing that you have, but I was looking on a lot of the pro formas and they list an interest rate of 6.2%, which would be heaven right now.
Yeah, well, remember with all the interest rates that we're giving, that 2% can help buy down that rate. So with 2% going towards your closing costs, that can help buy down the rate. So one of the most important things that I see, and you can get that from different lenders, and we have no lenders that we are in ownership with or partnership with, but we recommend a small group of lenders that have done lots of property loans for us. So we'll pass that list on to you so that you'll see what kind of rates that we can get. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised what we can get, especially with the 2% discount. And interest rates are a really interesting question, guys. I was told by a mentor years ago, remember, you're marrying the property, but you're only dating the rate. And that was really powerful for me. And I'll tell you why. In the history of the Fed, and we actually did a video on this that some of you might have seen, me and my building partner, the Federal Reserve Bank has a very, very clear history of times like we just went through of jolting up the interest rates and then realizing that they made a mistake, surprise, surprise, and having to trail them back down 2+%. You can look, it's over the last 85-year span, it plays out the same time. So although I can't promise that this will repeat itself, for myself and some of my own properties, I'm looking at a refinance option on newer purchases. Probably, again, this normally happens within 18 to 24 months. This jump happened last June. So we're already well into it. For people smarter than me, and I know my friend Don again at DLP, who hires bigger analysts than I can, he said he's seeing some really positive things by the end of this year. So even with that higher rate, you don't want to miss on planting the seed, because two things can happen during that, and we're still seeing this in Florida. You're going to miss out on more value growth and rent growth. And then if the market does become hot, then you can get priced out. And we saw that happen in Florida before. So with interest rates, don't let the long term be affected by that short term, because if history repeats itself, there is going to be a refi opportunity. Again, marry the property, date the rate. Did that help? Thank you very much. We had another question here. Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions. So when you say it is build to rent, does the purchase price, is that more of a wholesale or a retail cost to us? And the second question is, you have two cash on your PowerPoint, like there was one cash on cash return and then there is cash on cash with tax savings. Is it, when you say tax savings, is it depreciation added to it, or how are those two different?
We can explain that at the booth. There's a couple of different things with taxes. It's not only the depreciation and some of the way that the income is treated, but also the first year when you're buying a new construction home, normally the majority of that first year, the property taxes are not priced at the value of the home. They're priced at the value of the land. Does that make sense? So we've had investors call us and say, we thought our property taxes were going to be $2,600. They're $470. We're not complaining, but what happened? That first year, or the majority of that first year, a lot of the times, it can be taxed at land value instead of this new home that has appeared there. Does that make sense? Now you'll have to repeat your first question, if you would, on the cash on cash, the retail price.
The original question was, because it's a new build, will the purchase cost be at the wholesale value, or is it a retail price to us when we purchase the price?
Well, the market is always moving on, and the question was, is that a wholesale price or a retail price? What I can tell you is, for many of our people that have put down their deposit and we've built the house, and I can't always promise that when the appraisal comes back, the appraisal is higher than what the purchase price is. We listed around what we think the market value is. Now, sometimes there's been huge benefit. I can tell you last month we had an investor in Southwest Florida. His appraisal came in at $132,000 above what we had contracted it with him for. High fives, very happy for him. But it's a moving target, especially in our market. We price it around what we think the retail or possibly wholesale retail price is, and then we do try to have you step into equity if things go that way, but we can't promise that. Okay? And we're about cut off now. I can take one more question, guys, and then we got one right up here.
I had a question. Do you all specialize in one type of rental, short, medium, or long term? Or
there you are. Sorry.
you do all three?
So we only focus on long-term rentals. Short-term rentals, I own a few. The one thing about short-term rentals I tell everyone to think about is their downtime and their turnover can be something you want to watch for. And we decided The most experience I've had is in long-term rentals. So all we focus on, guys, is long-term 1 or 2 year leases. And that's been able to get the best incremental growth for all of our clients. Guys, I really appreciate you being here. Please stop by and see us at the booth. Again, if we can help you leverage your time back and have a better family life, we're here for you. Thanks for coming today. Appreciate it.